Higher Ed 512, Week 1, Defining Terms, Explaining Concepts. As we begin to explore these concepts of organizational culture and governance, it seems pretty important to equip ourselves by defining and clarifying a few keywords and concepts. As you've likely experienced in other settings, language can be ambiguous, it can be slippery, and it's often prone to misunderstanding. The definition of a given word can vary considerably depending on the context within which it's being used. All fields of human endeavor, from the most technical of professions to people's hobbies, have a unique language that takes time to learn, and higher education is no exception. Words that seem self-evident, so commonplace, so everyday, to individuals who've enjoyed long careers in higher education, can be confusing or perplexing to newcomers to the academy. So at the start of our 8 weeks together, here are definitions of key terms or phrases as they will be used throughout Higher Ed 512. Familiarity with the definitions is essential for your understanding of the course material and for your full participation in activities and course assignments. So we begin with the phrase organizational culture. In everyday terms, we're talking about the personality of a school, the intangible but very powerful something that prospective students or faculty or other employees feel when they walk onto the campus. The culture of a college or university is what makes it different or unique from other institutions with similar missions and curricula. Organizational theorist Edgar Schein defines organizational culture as a pattern of shared basic assumptions that was learned by a group as it solved its problems of external adaptation and internal integration, that has worked well enough to be considered valid and therefore to be taught to new members as the correct way you perceive, think, and feel in relation to those problems. And here's a definition from the world of business. Organizational culture is the sum total of an organization's past and current assumptions, experiences, philosophy, and values that hold it together, and is expressed in its self-image, inner workings, interactions with the outside world, and future expectations. It is based on shared attitudes, beliefs, customs, expressed or implied contracts, and written and unwritten rules that the organization develops over time and that have worked well enough to be considered valid. So in other words, culture is simply a way of that things are at a particular school. Every organization has culture. Culture is like the air we breathe. It's all around us, but we don't often notice it until it's polluted. Although every school has a dominant culture, whenever two or more people are gathered together, and especially when those people are highly educated and highly opinionated, there will be subcultures. College and university communities are far from homogeneous. Even within the smallest small college, we can find pockets of differing perspectives at an institution. It may be one campus, but there's always different cultures, always subcultures. As defined in the book Organizational Culture, a subculture is a subset of an organization's members who interact regularly with one another, identify themselves as a distinct group within the organization, share a set of problems commonly defined to be problems for all, and routinely take action on the basis of collective understandings that are unique to the group. Board members, administrators, and faculty all come to the institutional party with unique understandings of how a college or university does and should operate. So as noted in the 6 Faces of the Academy, which is one of the assigned readings this week, subcultures themselves are frequently subdivided. The characteristics of the 6 cultural types can and do show up in any subculture. In this course, we'll look specifically at 3 cultures that dominate institutional governance: the faculty culture, the administrative culture, and the board cultures. As the figures featured on this slide illustrate, the board's culture has a decidedly legislative flavor to it. The faculty culture has an otherworldly feel about it, a culture that's dominated by ideas and the pursuit of knowledge. It's tangible, tradition, and place-bound and collegial. The administrative culture is managerial, pragmatic, very much this world focus, and jam-packed with meetings. Peering out at the institution from within their respective subcultures, it's not surprising when there are clashes or crashes. When everyone sets their own rules on the road, watch out, there's trouble ahead. Which brings us to our next word, governance. It's here that we find the rules of the road in a particular school. Governance is a collective effort, through smooth and suitable process, to take actions that advance a shared purpose consistent with the institution's mission. I frequently define governance as the process by which the authority structures, authorize, plan, and assess, make decisions, and develop policies in order to fulfill the institution's educational mission while maintaining economic vitality. Governance transcends subcultures. These are big rules by which everyone is expected, indeed is required, to play. Within institutions of higher education, a particular form of governance is called the gold standard, and that's referred to as shared governance. A frequently referenced definition of shared governance originated with the American Association of University Professors, which is AAUP. This definition reads, shared governance is a division of authority and decision-making responsibility between faculty and administration based on their distinctive expertise. The model is an internally focused, bilateral division of labor, with little place for on or off-campus constituencies beyond the tenure-track faculty and academic managers and their trustees. If you'll note, this definition from the faculty-centric AAUP, board members are a little more than a footnote to the so-called academic managers. So I much more prefer to think of shared governance as a collaborative and goal-setting and problem-solving process built on trust and communication. This process involves representatives from appropriate constituent groups who engage in open discussion and timely decision-making areas of institutional performance. Within this more gentle definition of shared governance, the goal is to involve as many people as possible in realizing the educational mission and achieving economic vitality by inviting a whole host of stakeholders into the sacred calling of stewarding the institution. Committing to shared governance is to acknowledge that more minds are better than just one, that listening to a variety of voices and opinions on almost any issue leads to better decision-making. And in the context of a Christian college or university, it's about discerning together the prize toward which God is calling the institution. As the authors of our text tell us, effective governance requires attention to time constraints, personalities, and the importance of collegiality and bureaucracy in the decision-making process, and all the more so if we're committed to the principles of shared governance. Mortimer and Satter refer to the shared governance as an art. To paint a pretty governance picture, it takes a partnership of leaders who are, number one, market smart. They're able to understand the market and other external forces at work. Number two, they're mission-centered. They're able to keep their institution's basic goals and distinctive purposes at the forefront of decision-making processes. And politically savvy, they're able to guide their institutions safely through the jungle of competing advocates. To which I'll add that it also requires leaders who are patient, persistent, flexible, and collaborative. As the authors of our text note, there are some who considered shared governance to be a troublesome relic from a slower-paced, more genteel era era in the history of American higher education. And in fact, Mortimer and Satter concede that shared governance structures work well for the routine business of the academy, but are less effective when the big issues are on the table. In the coming weeks, you'll have the opportunity to form your own opinion on this point. So there you have them, the 4 key words and concepts that are foundational to the content of this course. I encourage you to keep the definitions handy and refer to them often over the next 8 weeks.